Well, Peter, this episode, we're living on the edge. We're out there. We're hanging it out there, baby. Hanging it out there.
I don't understand.
I know you don't.
What the genetics are here, what the personality type is.
I don't understand at all.
Really? No, really? Really? No, really? Really?
So let's tell everybody what we're talking about. So there is a phenomenon that we've come across. Some people call it adventure tourism. I think that's underselling it. It's really extreme tourism. And this is things like, going on the Titan submersible, climbing to the top of Everest when you've never, you can't do 12 stairs, but I'm going to do Everest. Or you go to the most dangerous places in the world.
Well, you
There's
have
a
to
great
try
story.
the new buffet in Syria.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I'll just give you a stupid example. There was a guy, Miles Rutledge, from Britain, right? And he decided to holiday in Afghanistan. As the country fell to the Taliban, he was, of course, abducted. He was later freed. He became a YouTube sensation. And since then, he went back to Afghanistan, where he was taken prisoner by the Taliban a second time.
And you know us. The Taliban is 2 minutes from breaking into my room, and I'm going,
right.
HBO is hard. I can't get it. It said you had it, but I can't get it.
Exactly.
Not knowing.
So people are they're going to the craziest places, and we wanted to talk more about this. So I got to tell you, we got the face of extreme tourism. This is the guy. You go to the source, you get the wellspring. So if you know the name Mike Reiss as well as I do, then you probably know him as the 4-time Emmy Award-winning, and screw him, and Peabody Award-winning head writer for The Simpsons.
Yep.
But he's done many other things. He's a contributing writer to 24 animated films, including favorites like All Four of the Ice Ages, The Two Despicable Me's, The Lorax, Kung Fu Panda, The Simpsons movie, of course. He's a former president of the Harvard Lampoon. My son went to Yale, so I don't
I've been to Harvard. I've been to Harvard. They live me on campus, but I went.
Yeah, I understand. 19 children's books, including the best-selling How Murray Saved Christmas, which became an award-winning animated film starring someone you know.
Who? There you go.
And
it was a book, right?
It was a book. And he's got a fantastic podcast. Have you heard the podcast and read the book?
I've heard the podcast. What's the book called?
What am I doing here?
We can discuss that, Jason, when nobody's around.
Right. No. Yeah. But it's what am I doing here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if you don't know, I don't know.
But the book is what am I doing here?
The book and the podcast. What am I doing here?
No,
ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Reiss, how are you, sir?
What a pleasure. What a plug.
You don't know that yet.
Beautiful. You saved me the trouble of shaming myself.
Right? You don't have to shamelessly promote anymore.
Before we talk about where you've been, I got to just make a point here, I think. Didn't all tourism used to be risky tourism? I remember, like in the first plane rides, the first blimp thing didn't
you're
go
too modern. Go back. I'm going to go outside the cave and look for a berry. Oh, well, good luck. That's pretty extreme, Murray.
So extreme tourism, right?
This is outtakes from the 2,000-year-old.
You're absolutely right. There was a guy, Phil. He was an adventure
didn't get a
tourist.
laugh. It wasn't funny.
But
I had Murray and everything.
My parents going to the Poconos or Catskills was always deadly. And the first thing, and we'll start back in your childhood, because it didn't look like you were going to be an adventure or extreme tourist, because I think I read that you said it was something to be travel, and leaving the house was something to be dreaded in your family.
That's it. Yeah, I come from a big family. There are 5 kids, and the only vacations we take was we'd all pile in the car, and my dad would drive us to Civil War sites. That's
with the reenactors. Did they have the reenactors?
No.
Oh, just the sites.
A field. We drive to Pennsylvania. Here's a field, and and he wouldn't even tell us what happened. We're just there. Why are we in the field here? And Virginia, here's another field, and I just hated it. And so that was it. Vacation was something I really hated, and it was anarchic with all these kids in the car, and the dad who was always mad.
So let's take a leap. You meet this woman, you fall in love.
Yeah.
And did you have any sense that this was somebody who for the next 30 plus years is going to drag you to hellholes all over the world where you risk your life, and you would not gladly, but you would go and say yes?
Yes. The answer is no. I had no idea. We dated for 2 years and never left her apartment. We just go to her apartment and watch TV all weekend long.
Oh my gosh!
And
Dream.
I thought, I have found my dream girl. It was just such a classic bait and switch. And then we're getting married and we're trying to figure out where to take a honeymoon. And I suggested Disneyland or Disney World. And she said, I was thinking of Yemen or Siberia. And I said, those are places people want to get out of.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that was it. She waited right to the honeymoon to lower the boom on me that we weren't going to be sitting around the house anymore.
But to that point, you've been to how many countries now?
136.
How many of them are on the do not go to list currently?
I don't know. It changes from
lot.
day to day.
A lot of
them. I mean, I've been to every Muslim country, so I know a lot of those are
And it
not,
says REISS on your passport?
It sure, you don't even need the name. Yeah, my passport photo looks like anti-Semitic propaganda. I look like the face on hate literature.
So, all right. So let's jump.
So just to
into,
clarify, because you assumed
go
knowledge.
ahead.
So for people who don't know, when we're talking about Mike's marriage to the lovely Denise, it's because she has been the instigator of all this,
All of
and
it.
Mike has been
Yes.
the somewhat less than willing victim of her travel needs. What I just have to ask, so before we get into every place that she's dragged you, what does she have on you? Is it? I know it's the source of slightly rewarding sex, but other than that, what does she have on you that you why when she proposes going to a place that you know is going to be difficult, why do you say yes? Is it just love?
It is, well, yes, it is love and just sort of general married passivity, I think. I made a list once of everything that husbands do for their wives, and I don't think the wives understand that at all. They think the husbands are going, men would never buy a house, starting with that. No house would ever be sold if a wife didn't make a husband do it. Nobody would have kids. Men wouldn't wear pants. They'd never go... I know it's your special love, Jason, but no man would ever go to a Broadway musical. You walk into a Broadway theater, there's 400 men there who don't want to be there. And their wives just think, oh, wasn't that nice?
Oh my God!
So your wife not only possesses the danger gene, she possesses the persuasion gene because she's got
Yes, she does.
because she's gotten you to go to. Let's just give us Honduras. You were abducted.
Honduras,
You were abducted.
we got kidnapped in.
Well, let's not go down like that's number one on the list. What the hell happened?
It's 136 countries, and the big ones are, Iran and Iraq and Libya. My wife, by the way, is Gentile, and she drags her very Jewish-looking husband to all these places that hate Jews, like Iran and Iraq and Syria and South Carolina and places like that. But it's all worked out. And a story I hope I get to tell is about going to North Korea. We went to North Korea.
Tell it. Go ahead. Here's your chance. Go.
It was one morning I woke up and there was an email from Harvard Travel saying, do you want to go to North Korea? And I said, no, I do not. And I deleted the email and then went through the trash and deleted it again before my wife woke up. But of course, she went to Harvard too, and they sent her the same email. And she goes, of course, we want to go to North Korea. And the big scare, on top of what scares everyone about North Korea, is the idea that they kidnap visiting filmmakers. Kim Jong-il, when he was in charge back then, was an expert on film. He had a collection of 40,000 DVDs. And so he would throw these film festivals in North Korea, and if an actor, or if a director, if a writer showed up that he liked, he would kidnap him and force him to make movies for the regime for 20 years. Wow. So this was real danger for me to go to North Korea, and I got advice on what to put on the application. I was supposed to say I was a publicist, not a writer. And we get to North Korea, and they greet me, and they say, "Mr. Reiss, we know who you are, and you have nothing to worry about." And I realized, they looked
Not a
at my
fan.
credits.
We've read your work, not a fan.
We don't need this guy.
By the way, just in case, did you think if I get abducted, there are two things I would love to get made?
Yeah. You know, there's a guy, I forget the guy's, there's a guy who was kidnapped by the regime. He was a Japanese filmmaker. And first they put him in a concentration camp for 5 years, and then they let him out and let him make whatever he wanted.
Oh, my. Wow.
And if you're a fan of these things, there's a movie called Pulgasari, which you can see in its entirety on YouTube. And it's North Korea's Godzilla movie, and it's great. He got to make this terrific Godzilla movie, and then he finally escaped North Korea, and he went to Hollywood, and, you know, suddenly he's in Hollywood as a 60-year-old director, and I'm sure he's going, gee, things were a little better in North Korea.
In North Korea, sure, yeah.
I'm guessing he
I
didn't
never
get,
got notes.
He didn't get notes, and I'm sure he didn't get profit participation
right,
either.
exactly.
Just guessing. So let me jump to a couple places, because the one that got me when I realized what it was growing up, you always hear Everest, how daunting that is. Right. And then one time I saw a special report on Everest, and I didn't realize there are lines like around the block waiting to get up. It's like waiting at a Starbucks, except it's cold. And people's got Sherpas, and you have to wait maybe sometimes hours to ascend the mountain. But it is very dangerous, correct?
It's, you know, I didn't go to Everest.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh, Kilimanjaro. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Is that similar? Is that also like become a tourist destination for people that really shouldn't be there?
Yeah, no, it's not as bad as that. It's 18,000 feet. It's way up there.
Oh, piker.
But you can walk up it. You know, you don't need pitons, and you don't need a warm weather jacket or anything like that. But yeah, my wife came at me, of course, with the idea, let's go. She tried to soften it to me. She said, let's just go to Everest Base Camp. And people die at the base camp.
Do they really? I always thought
do.
the base camp was okay.
No,
People die at the base camp.
It's funny. It's and it's filthy too. And this is the craziest thing about Mount Everest, because we've been to Nepal and to see Mount Everest. When you're at Everest Base Camp, you can't see Mount Everest. It's like 6 weeks just to get up to there, and you can't see the mountain.
Oh,
from
so
there.
you're not actually at the base of Everest when you?
It's the base camp. I don't know how it works. I haven't been there, but then my friends. This will get us to the Titan story eventually. My friends are always coming to me when they hear about, here's something dangerous I don't want to do. I'll call the
Let
Reese's.
Mikey do it. It's like the Life cereal commercials.
And there's a trip you can take where you skydive onto the top of Mount Everest. And I go, well, there you go.
What?
Now that's a couple of great ways to get killed. At
My
once.
God, that's like adding to the checklist of dying to make sure. It just kind of ensures it. All right, you brought it up.
Also, wait a minute.
Yes.
We saw the pictures of the people queued up, right, to get to the top of Everest.
Yeah.
You're not talking about a landing pad. If you're skydiving, that thing comes to like a point.
Yeah, like an icicle. Like an icicle.
That's some pretty.
And by the way, I always wonder too when you got that many people up there. Okay.
Yeah.
So you and I, after 10 weeks, finally get to the friggin' top, and we're exhausted, and we're almost dead, and whatever. Do you get to hang there a while? Or was the next guy going, all right, you took the picture?
No, you get a picture and you go. But I'm always thinking,
That's it?
I'm always the guy that gets, you wait on the line and they close the attraction just
So they go like right, you're 2 feet away from the top.
Right,
and they go,
and sorry everybody, we got to go down. We got a weather front coming in. Come on, 10 seconds, let me take a photograph. We can't do it.
You know
can't
what would deter me if I was insane enough to do Everest?
Yeah.
When you're climbing and you see Hal, who froze 3 winters ago in the mountain, and he's like this. And his face
Who's that? That's the Schmeckman party. We don't talk about that.
Don't worry, just get past. Oh, you made it to Schmeckman. The Schmeckmans.
Most people don't make it to Schmeckman. That's very good. You're an elite climber.
What happened to Schmeckmans? We're not going to know until the summer thaw. So that already would put me off. But let's talk about the submersible, because I think I reached out to you when that happened, as did almost every news organization in America, because they found out you were kind of a notable guy, having gone in the submersible, not once, not twice, but how many times, Mike?
Well, 4 times.
And
But-
Mike, just to clarify, this is the exact same company where the disaster happened, right? Where it imploded.
This is now I'll clarify it. Everyone gets it wrong. I took 3 dives with this company, with the famous Stockton Rush who built the sub and then died in the sub. I took 3 dives off of Staten Island with him. So that's 3 of the 4.
Okay.
That's how we got involved with him and kind of caught his dream. But it was just, we liked it. It was local. And we took this dive down to what's called Hudson Canyon. There's a canyon under the Hudson River that is bigger than the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
And we went down, and it was a beautiful experience. And then we came up, and it was only when we're getting out, he goes, you're the first people ever to do that. And it was like, what? I don't want to be the first. I don't want to be Neil Armstrong. I want to be Harrison Schmitt. I want to be the last man on the moon after they got all the bugs out. And so we took those 3 dives with him. And then 2 years later, he said, well, I built a new sub to go to the Titanic. And that's the Titan. And we rode that with him. And again, I didn't want to go. I did, and this is how crazy this is a friend of ours called us up. Hey, they're taking these dives now to the Titanic, and my first words were, "Well, that sounds like a fun way to die." so I had no illusions going into this, but I would never have done it in a million years, except it fell on my wife's birthday. And that was it. That's my only motivation.
No.
Was like, I don't want to go to
All right, but
Macy's.
Mike,
Sure,
let me
yeah,
ask you a question
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Because you're a really smart guy. You're a
No.
brilliant writer. You're well-read.
Okay.
You're obviously well-traveled. I saw pictures of what that thing looked like inside on a good day.
Yeah.
It's like somebody saying...
A good day is when it doesn't fold in on
When it
itself.
doesn't explode. You're basically sitting in water in a metal barrel with a couple other people with your legs folded, and a guy's using a game controller that looks like he stole from his son's PlayStation.
It is
everybody goes, and then
literally an Xbox game controller.
oh my God. So if I looked into that, if I got to the point where I put the money down and then saw inside that for the first time, weren't you deterred by what it looked like that you're going to be sitting in to go to the Titanic?
No. What can I say? I have no children. I'm an aging Hollywood writer. I have nothing to live for. That was it. I had nothing to fear about it. I knew completely that I could die in that.
Wow. And
Yeah,
yet-
but there's so many ways you could die in it. I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to speak lightly about a tragedy, but
Sure
at least
you
with what
do.
happened on the Titan, in this case was an implosion that happened so fast that you have to assume, hopefully they had no idea that it was just
No idea.
instant death. But what about a leak? And
Yeah.
the leak is faster than we can go up. There's all kinds of things that can happen, especially if you're talking about fairly untested technology here. I
It's
don't know how
definitely
you do
true.
it.
And in fact, having taken the other dives with the guy, when we first heard the Titan was missing, I thought, they're trapped at the bottom of the ocean. My wife immediately thought it had imploded as soon as we heard the news. And they spent, 4 days looking for it. She goes, it imploded. And I thought, no, it's so low tech how that whole sub works. I'll take you through it real quick. Because you climb in. Something else I didn't know was they bolt you in from the outside.
Yeah,
I
did
thought there
hear
was
that.
a way out.
Oh,
I didn't
boy.
know that.
No,
boy.
there's no escape
Wow.
hatch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But they bolt you in and they push it in the water and then it just drops like a stone. It just drops for 2.5 hours. It goes 2.5 miles down. But that's all there is to it. It just drops like a stone. And I fell asleep. That's how unscared I was I fell asleep on the way down. It was boring. And I woke up when we hit bottom. And I wish this on nobody. The thought that you're sleeping and you think you're home in bed and you wake up and go, oh no, I'm 2.5 miles under the
Underwater,
ocean. And
yeah.
but it's it was comfortable.
And initially, I think the story was that the window was facing the wrong way, and you guys couldn't see the ship.
No, I don't know what. No, that's.
Oh,
not
okay.
true.
I heard that it was like the compass was off, and
Here's what happened. So we hit bottom, and they pull out the Xbox game controller that steers the ship, and we knew for some reason we were 500 yards from the Titanic, but we couldn't see it. Here it is, the biggest thing man had ever built, and we were right by it and couldn't find the thing. And we look at the compass, and the compass is just spinning in circles. That was no help. And we had a science officer on board, and she was, you would have loved her. She's very Star Trek to have a Russian science officer on board. And they're giving us advice, and none of it corresponds to what we're seeing. And the woman keeps going, go switch to the B map. And they keep going, what is the B map? There's no such thing. And she just kept asking for it. So we were just sort of bumming around the bottom of the ocean, looking for the Titanic. And we have a time cutoff, too. It had nothing to do with oxygen or anything like that. But you have to get up back to the surface while it's still daylight so that the rescue ship can find you. So we only had 3 hours to bum around down there, and everybody's springing into action, both the crew and the paying customers. And I'm not doing anything. I'm just ballast. I don't even drive. What do you think I can help you on this? So I'm just sitting there. And so with 20 minutes to go, we found the Titanic, and we just had enough time to get all the glory shots. I got photos of the anchor and the bow of the ship and the side where it says Titanic, and then we had to go back up.
Did you ever find the B map?
I don't know what the B map was.
Still to this day. And by the way, so you also had to
maybe
sign...
that would have saved them, too.
That could have been
Maybe
the
that would have
end,
saved
You had to
the
sign a
people who
release
died.
that had death in there quite a few times, right? That said you could die quite a few times. I mean, right up front.
Yes, you sign a waiver that mentions death 3 times on page 1, and you just page through it, and they've thought of every way you can die on this thing. So anybody, again, the news developed a narrative which was totally unfair, and people didn't know what they were getting into. Everyone knew exactly what they were getting into. Wow. And in fact, the way you can prove it, we're sort of friends with 3 other people who took the dive at different times and didn't die. And none of us are mad at the captain. None of us are going, whoo, that could have been me, or none of us have anger that we were put in this dangerous situation. You can't get on this sub without knowing exactly what you're up
And yet you did it anyway, which is kind of insane.
So let me...
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay.
Let me go into some of your other troubles just to ask this question. So you said you were, abducted in Honduras. Has there ever been a situation in a serious way where you go, "Oh, we're really in trouble now. We have a big problem." What was that?
This is it. It's a 2-minute story. I have no stories under 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's okay.
It was just about a year ago. It was New Year's Eve in Namibia. And this is something we didn't even think would be dangerous. But my wife said, "Oh, let's hire a car and a driver and watch the last sunset of the year from the Namibian desert on top of a sand dune." So we go, all right. And of course I say yes, because that's the only word I know. And so we book this, and it's very romantic, and we're watching the sunset. And then my wife looks over at the car, and she goes, "Why are the lights on?" And I said, "Honey, the man knows what he's doing," which of course are always famous last words. So
Sure.
The sun goes down. We pile back in the car. The guy tries to start the car, and it's dead. It's dead.
Yeah.
He ran the battery down, and we get on our cell phones, and there's no phone reception from the Namibian desert. So we're stuck there, right? And the desert, when the sun goes down, goes from 80 degrees to 40 degrees. Wow. So it's really cold. My wife is in a bathing suit. We are not prepared for this. And then this is where the car driver did something that wouldn't even go in a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. He had such a stupid plan where we get out of the car and he starts pushing it to the edge of a sand dune. And his idea is it'll roll down the sand dune and start up. And it's like, yeah, but we're not in the car. It's just going to take off. The car will be saved, and we're going to freeze to death in the desert. But instead, I'm getting near the end here. Instead, he pushed it half off the sand dune, so it's teetering over the precipice. Like if you remember the original Italian Job, it was like that.
Yeah.
That classic ending was now My Life, where it's teetering there. So now we can't even get in the car for warmth. It's too dangerous. So we're just going to have to sit there and freeze to death in the desert. And that's the closest point. I thought, I'm going to die here. And the thought I couldn't get out of my head was, I'm going to die here. I'll never get to see Avatar 2. And
You are a strange person. You know that.
Wow. I just couldn't get that out of my head. And then, like a miracle, the driver's phone rang. Like we couldn't make calls out, but calls could still come in. And it was his boss going, "Where the hell is the car?" And he told him, and he rescued us. And we got home right around midnight for New Year's Eve. And I went home and saw Avatar 2, and I go, what was that? That was terrible.
I wish I died in the desert.
Yeah.
So moving on to a couple other observations you made. You said that the Cuban flag should have a broken toilet on it because there is not one workable toilet in all of Cuba. Is that
There
correct?
is not one. Everywhere we went, there is no working toilet. They're all broken. And one day we were outside of a restaurant, and we see, just sitting in front where the customers come in, the brokenest toilet in the world. It's just in shards and pieces and scattered all over. And I said, "There it is, honey. A toilet so broken they're throwing it out." And she said, "Maybe they're bringing it in."
That's the restaurant.
That was their advertisement.
Yeah.
Wait,
It's an amazing. I'll get back to the sub real quick. but
Okay.
Before we return to toilet land, which is they had a box in the front of the sub, right under the window. They had basically a potty seat that if you had to go, and you're in the sub for 10 hours, that's minimum. You're screwed in there for 10 hours. You can pull a curtain and use the potty chair. And they told me before I got on, they said, "We have a potty seat here. We're going to have food and water. You're not going to be interested in any of them." And I said, I'm not going 10 minutes without a toilet, much less 10 hours. But sure enough, it leaves your head. You're in the submarine. They said they in whatever 3 or 4 years, no one had ever used that toilet in the submarine.
And you know
This
why I'm
is
guessing?
like the men's room on the Greyhound bus, where it's
It's just a piece of cardboard.
It's a piece
like
of
door.
cardboard between you and the guy.
It's the back seat.
Right.
It's the left
They
part of the
basically
back
took
seat.
out the
Right.
cushion, put
And
it in a
put that
hole,
there.
and they put some corrugated cardboard around it.
And by the way, do you know that for me, going down for 10 hours in the submersible, my sphincter would be so tight the entire time out of fear that I couldn't, that I would not go. It would
You
be
couldn't
like,
get a stream
You
going
couldn't
if you
drive a
needed
nail
to.
up
You
there.
couldn't.
You couldn't
Right,
drive
I
a
know.
nail up there. Exactly. So, Michael, out of curiosity, I want to talk about some other places dangerous too. But getting back to bathrooms, kind of. Do you travel with stuff knowing that? Like Joan Rivers told me once she went to India and she packed one suitcase just with matzah, which is an unleavened bread, like crackers. And
You're
everybody,
telling Mike
and
what
every,
matzah
yeah, wait,
is?
no,
Thank you for
everybody, I'm
telling
telling
us
people
that,
listening what.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. I thought you were
So
explaining
she
it to
packed
Mike.
the whole suitcase.
The
Everybody-
illusion
You
is
have
we're talking to
Gentiles
Mike.
listening
That's
to
the
this.
illusion, that we're having a conversation with
But then we
Michael.
brought in maybe a couple have joined us.
Yeah, in case the Pope is listening.
Right. Positive thinking. In case the Pope.
Yeah, think
So,
communion way for your
Everybody's
eminence.
laughing. She's got this whole suitcase filled. The third day in India, everybody's coming up to the pool going, "Can I have some of your stuff?" Because everybody got the runs. Everybody, and she said, "Aha, I've been here before." She did a performance there. She said, "I know what to stay away from and not." Do you bring anything to A, ensure your health, B, to nail yourself in, like, where's Papa, to the room so nobody can get in? Do you bring nails and wood? What precautionary stuff do you take that could be tips to our audience?
You know, I just have a lot of your basic medicines. I don't bring anything special, I gotta say. And sometimes I get sick. Maybe once a year I get sick. You know, my wife calls it tummy trouble. It's diarrhea. I'll get it.
Yeah.
And that's it. You get it and you got it. I tell the story in the book, What Am I Doing Here by Mike Reiss. I got to say that because
Sure.
I found out there's 15 other books called What Am I Doing Here? But mine's the funny one with the Jew on the cover. And so we were in Syria, okay? I take my vacations in Syria.
Of course.
And I loved it. I mean, this is the thing. This is right before trouble broke out. And this is the story. Who wants to go to Syria? It was the loveliest place on earth with the finest people on earth. I feel very bad that, you know, what they've been going through. But I go into a restaurant, I just sit down with a bunch of merry Syrians, and I reach to pour a pitcher of water, and they're all going, no, 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 don't do it. And I drank a whole pitcher of water on the mistaken notion that these people are so friendly, how bad could their microbes be?
Right.
And the answer is just terrible. And the next day, I was like you, Jason, I was in a UNESCO World Heritage Site, some world-class ruin, and I had to poop behind a column. Some column had been there for 4,000 years, and it's looking down, going, "What is this?"
Has there ever been a place, Mike, where you said, we can't take the whole 7 days. We got to get out of here"?
You know, it just happened, and not in a scary, undeveloped place. We were in Taiwan not too long, and again, it's my wife's idea, which is pretty savvy because anywhere we go falls apart the next year, and including Syria. So we were in the area of Taiwan. She said, let's go to Taiwan because who knows when we'll get the chance again. And I just hated it there. And mostly it's an island. There's not a ton of things to do there, and it's super hot or it's raining all the time. So that was one. I'm just begging my wife, take me home. I want to go home.
But you've been to worse places where you've had to, where stuff is broken down and you're in mud, you're hunkered down. That doesn't bother. Have you?
It really doesn't. No.
Wow. So you are different.
Yeah, it's that is what's. I've done, like, for instance, my family and I did the 8-day rafting tour in the Grand Canyon. It's not glamping. It was a fabulous trip, but it's not glamping. And I kind of loved it, but there, on any given night, you're camping on a beach. We had one night where it was a swamp. It was mud. It's just stinky mud, and that's what your cot is in, and that's what you're walking in to get to the little box that we all poop in, and
people do it.
Yeah, if I go on vacation,
people
that's
camp.
not
They
what
think it's great and cool.
That's not what I'm looking. Do you also do I know you go to dangerous places, and I know you've climbed some heights, and you've done the submarine. But do you regularly do dangerous things? Do you zip line? Do you hang glide? Do you do all that stuff?
No. I mean, that's the weird thing is I will go to these places. Again, I'm just baggage for my wife. I'm luggage that pays for the trip.
Well, then wait, before you go, why does it call to her? I want to talk. We should be talking to her. Why do these places
bring her in here?
Bring her in. Why do these places call to her? What is it about them that makes her so excited?
She just thought when she was a kid, and she didn't grow up wealthy at all, but those were the days of Europe on $5 a day and that kind of thing. And her mom, who just had a very adventurous spirit, took her around the world twice. And she had been to Iran and Afghanistan and all these places. And we got married, and I hadn't been anywhere. I hadn't been to Europe. And so it's just what she likes. And it's a genetic thing where her mom, who, I don't know, didn't go to college or anything, just loved the world and traveled. And I keep thinking, we're getting old. I keep thinking it's going to slow down, and
it doesn't.
She doesn't slow down. Yeah.
Is it?
Okay.
Is it also space? I mean, are you ready to do the Jeff Bezos thing with her and go up into space?
Here's the truth of that, which is it's the same reason we went on the Titan trip, which everyone heard was $250,000, and I don't know what it cost. I just kept asking my wife, who handles the check, but I go, "What does this cost?" She goes, "You can afford it," and it's like I can afford an elephant, but I don't want one, and so I don't know what I paid to go down in the Titan, and we don't want to go into space, but I know if she gets a coupon, if it's 10% off.
With your free Amazon, with the discount on Amazon. Wow.
Free shipping. But let me, I'll just got to get the story out. In 2018, Mars was closer to the Earth than it will ever be again. And when they were looking for a childless middle-aged couple to get on a spacecraft and circle Mars and take photos. And my wife volunteered us. She volunteered, and they want a childless middle-aged couple because if they die, who cares?
Right.
That's really the thinking. And we volunteered, and I know we made it past the first cut.
And you would have done
We got Neil deGrasse Tyson to recommend us, and we made it past the first cut, and then the whole thing just fell apart.
Would you have done it?
I would have done it. You know, I live in a New York apartment, so space
listen.
camp.
All right, yeah.
So
I got it. We got to wrap this up in a minute. But what would you say no to if you're willing to go to Mars? What has anything been put on the table where you go, okay, seriously, I'm not doing that?
It was during really the height of the Afghanistan war. My wife gets another brochure, come to Afghanistan. And I said no. And she looked baffled. She literally had never heard that word from me in 35 years of marriage. I said no. And she speaks 5 languages and still didn't recognize the word. So I said no, anywhere but Afghanistan. And she goes, okay, Pakistan. So we went to
much better.
Pakistan.
Sure.
Trading the
That's
stand. So
better.
just
That's
creating
good.
a different stand. Wow.
Good Lord, Peter. All right.
He's either so terrified of her or so in love or so delusional.
She's very beautiful. She's beautiful and bright.
You know what? So is Margot Robbie, and I don't go to Afghanistan for her either. Listen, we if you want to hear more of these stories, please go check out Mike's podcast, What Am I Doing Here, with Mike Reiss. And also he's got that fabulous book that has a very similar title, which is very funny. Laugh out loud funny. I was sitting and reading and laughing out loud.
And also the photos, you did go to a goat beheading ceremony, which was lovely.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was
who
in
hasn't done
Pakistan.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Another goat beheading?
The most amazing selfies in the world. Mike, thank you very much. And by the way, congratulations. We didn't talk about it. But the other day was the first airing of the first Simpsons Christmas episode.
What is that?
That's 34 years. So 34 years into it, and you're one of the few. The cast members, I guess,
Al Jean,
your former partner, the guy, Matt Groening, and maybe the producer.
Brooks.
Or it's We're the only guys who lasted all 34 years.
all 34 years. So far, so good, yeah.
Did you ever anticipate that? Did you see it coming?
I tell this story all the time. 2 weeks before we came on the air, I'm sitting in the trailer with the other writers, and we had a trailer. They wouldn't even give us a room. They had so little faith in the show. And I said, how long do you think this show is going to last? And everybody said 6 weeks. We'd made 13, and everyone thought we're only going to run 6 weeks, and we wouldn't even get to show them all. And the most optimistic man in the room was Sam Simon, the other creator of the show, who said, it's going to run 13, but don't worry. No one's going to see it. It won't hurt your career.
Wow. And it exploded. It exploded from right
Immediately. The very first episode set the all-time high ratings record for Fox.
Unreal. And Jason, during the filming of the pilot for Seinfeld, said it's not going to last. You're quoted saying it's not going to last.
Yeah, I said
Did you really?
Well,
Yeah,
I thought
nobody
the audience
knows.
for it was... I remember saying to Jerry, I think it's very funny. That's the problem. The audience for the show is me, and I don't watch TV. So, if I'm the audience, we got a problem.
So on that, I'll say I'm sitting with two visionaries.
Yeah, exactly.
And who can see the future. Your next trip, Mike, do you know where you're going?
We're just going through... I lecture on cruise ships now. This is a new job I have, and it combines my wife's love of constant travel and my love of not paying for it. So I give talks on cruise ships. So I'd always promise her we'd go through the Panama Canal. So we're going through the Panama Canal, and then a week later, we're going through it again. The same trip with a different cruise line.
And the only thing you're risking there is high cholesterol because there's nine meals a day. Yeah.
You want to talk about the difference between his wife and my wife? I couldn't get my wife on a cruise.
And you know what?
If I
all right,
promised her.
I can convince her, and I bet Mike could. I did river cruises. Again, same thing. It was with the radio station, and then it took fans with whatever.
Sure.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
You're
Were there
going
people
into
on the boat? Other people on the boat?
Yeah.
My wife's off
So,
that trip.
all right. But you wake up at night. I don't sleep, so I'm sitting up with the captain who's from who knows where.
Yeah.
And we're pulling into Vienna, and you're going, this is the most amazing thing. You get off the boat, and you're there, and then you go to the next city, and the next city.
You know what?
Not enough
my
risk for
wife
him.
would say?
What?
Let's just go to Vienna. We'll fly to Vienna. It's much quicker.
But you
We
don't have to
be
unpack
on a
your
boat.
room every night.
It's so
we have
great
people
for
for that.
that.
We
I
don't
really
unpack
love it.
anything.
All right. Well, good luck. Be safe on the cruise. God forbid something should happen on a cruise.
That's what'll get us. I
Mike
know.
gets the cruise.
Yeah, that's where it all went wrong.
It hits an iceberg, and he
Fall
goes
off
down.
the
one bagged
gangway
shrimp at the
and-
raw
He
bar.
goes
and that
down
was
in
it.
his
down.
ship next to the Titanic, and then people years from now go to see Mike Reiss.
Right, exactly.
Next to the Titanic. Michael, thank you. The podcast is wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
And we'll
Thank
talk
you. You
again.
guys are an absolute joy. This is too much fun.
Continued success. Well, compared to where you've been, my God, this is
Yeah,
it's a
right?
party. Thank you, sir.